This is Pearls of Health Radio. Want to order any of the products covered on this week's show? Or just need more information? Then call Simply Natural now at 954-741-4045 or 1-800-528-1766. On the web at www.esimplynatural.com. Now back to Pearls of Health Radio and Richard Pearl.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Pearls of Health on WBZT AM 1230. Our guest is Heidi Berkovitz. She's a clinical herbalist and educator, and she set up this Community Herbals. Explain a little bit about that. Then I want to get into some of the medicinal herbs. But actually, how did you create that?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, I noticed the economy really needed a boost, and here in my community, it was frustrating me to watch all these amazing, talented people that were herbalists or farmers that were having to move out of the area because they couldn't make ends meet. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. We're herbalists, a huge, huge community here because there's 4 herb schools. And, we're buying our herbs from companies that aren't even in North Carolina. And I'm like, we should be giving our neighbors money instead of a big company. Not to say, again, that company isn't good or other companies aren't good, but I'd rather pay a little bit more to support my local community and know that I have really high-quality herbs. It makes a difference to me to know that the person who's growing or wildcrafting has a connection to the plants, a love for it, and a knowledge. So I'll pay more for that.
That's reasonable. And so you're working with all these people to make sure that the biodiversity is used properly, that they're not going to go out of business. And, that's really admirable, and I wish more people thought like that because, quite frankly, when you compromise your integrity for the dollar, there's a penalty for that. When everybody shops at Walmart, there's a penalty for the neighborhood structure. So people don't seem to care or realize that, so I'm glad that you look at it a little bit differently. Now, I
think there are...
Yeah, go ahead. No, go
ahead.
I
think there are pockets of people that do care, even in the big city, but you might just not run into them as often just because everyone's so spread out.
Yeah, I would go with that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about medicinal herbs. Specifically, which ones are most important to you?
Well, I have to say my favorite herb would be St. John's wort. It's not native to North Carolina, but it grows in abundance here. And I remember when I was first in herb school, my teacher was like, who are your plant allies? And I'm like, plant allies? What is she talking about, plant allies? But the more time I spent in the woods and the more time I spent around these plants, I kept gravitating towards St. John's wort. Now, in all the research, you've probably heard it's great for depression, and it is, but it's also really good for muscle and nerve pain. And I like to make an oil out of it, and as a massage therapist, I use that oil topically on myself and on others, and this plant is just so amazing and great, and I like to make medicine from it when it's fresh, and I just like knowing that I picked it. It makes a difference, like if you grew your own food. So that's one of my favorites. I really like milk thistle. I don't collect that one because it's a seed, and you'd have to eat so much of it to equal out, a standardized extract of it. But that's such a great liver healer. It's probably one of the best ones, in my opinion. And it can regenerate the liver quickly. It's used even by physicians for people with liver disease. And most of us living in this toxic world, could use a little boost on the liver. So I like that one a lot. I really like collecting wild edible plants. This isn't one of my favorites, but I'll just tell you because it's springtime here in the Carolinas. One of the plants growing right now is called Japanese knotweed. It's an invasive plant, but it's very high in resveratrol, which I know you probably talk about in your own
Yeah, we use
practice.
a lot of it, actually.
Oh, you do? Great.
Yeah.
Well, you can even make like a stir fry with the shoots. I like to collect the plants and cook with them too, because it's another good way to get your medicine. You know, the more whole plant, whole food that you can eat, the better the quality, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients. So that's really good. And Japanese knotweed has a reputation for even helping Lyme's disease. So that's pretty exciting.
That is, actually, because the doctors aren't doing so well with that one either.
I know. They say, there's nothing you can do. I wish that more doctors would say, there's nothing that we know to do, but that doesn't mean there isn't something out there for you.
You know, that's a very key point. They need to restate that, because it's nothing that they know what to do. That doesn't mean that they're the total knowledge university. They only know what they know. And so there's nothing that they know to do. And that's but if they were showing some humility and they said that, then maybe people would realize that, you know, they have to do things on their own at times too, which is unfortunately not taking place anywhere near enough. But, you know, this is something that is kind of interesting, to say the least. So I think you bring up a very valid point. Now, something else I want to discuss with that. I want to go back to St. John's. People who have intestinal problems, would it be wise to take St. John's as an oil on their intestines, just to rub it, maybe to soothe the muscles, or would you take it internally?
Well, I mean, as far as digestive problems, that wouldn't be like my first choice, but I do think if they have any kind of muscle or nerve pain, that it couldn't at all hurt topically. I think if you take any kind of bitter herbs, those are the best thing you can do for gut health. Things even like chamomile tea, which is very popular, that's a bitter. So you can take that as one of your bitters. But when you take a bitter herb, as soon as you have just one taste, even think about like, you know, plants like, say, let's see, arugula or something. The second you taste that bitter, it activates the bitter reflexes, and it will, you know, make all the digestive juices squirt out, like your hydrochloric acid, your insulin, your bile. And when you have good gut health, which I'm sure you've also talked about on your show, that's going to help boost your immune system. So a lot of people, you know, don't realize that, you know, your digestion is key to good health. So I would recommend.
They say that the intestines are the seat of your immunity, and that most diseases, if not all diseases, start in the colon. So that's certainly I would agree with your synopsis. So my thinking is this, that, and this is why a lot of people, by the way, will drink coffee to go to the bathroom. It's bitter, and it'll trigger bile production. But my thinking is this. To start off a day, if they're taking a liver cleanse, or at night would be even preferable, because your liver repairs at night. If they took a liver cleanse and they took even shiitake mushroom in the morning to, you know, to invigorate the liver, and they were to do those things, and they were to take some of the other herbs that you mentioned, and particularly working on digestive things, taking bitters, they would resolve a lot of problems. And you mentioned chamomile. Chamomile is so great for sleep, for deep sleep. So is hops. That you know, everything I really have been looking at recently, and the people I've had on recently, all say the same thing. Sleep is the most relevant thing you can do. And in fact, if you slept better, chances of heart attacks would go down drastically. The stress levels, the stress hormones would all shift. Your need to eat would change drastically. Your thinking skills would improve greatly, et cetera, et cetera. Everything's tied to sleep. And what's happened is that we don't sleep enough in this society. So I'd like you to actually talk about some herbs. I just mentioned two, but if you would talk about some herbs that could be useful for sleeping. And you you have quite a few products that we carry at Simply Natural. I should mention that. We have the products. They're very inexpensive, and they work exceptionally well because they're all made properly. They're not made, you know, for commercial purposes. They're made for the right time of picking, when they have their highest nutrient density, and they're very effective. And she's picking them, and you can see her passion. But if you would, what herbs would be very useful for people?
Well, St. John's wort is a good one for sleep and for insomnia. But I think about herbs like, of course, you mentioned hops, and skullcap is another really great herb. Passion flower is a great herb. Of course, you said chamomile. There are so many herbs that help with sleep, and one of them that I'm going to mention isn't specifically to help you fall asleep, but it's called Eleutherococcus senticosus, which is a type of ginseng. Well, it is a ginseng, and it helps you.
They used to call it Siberian.
Pardon?
They used to call it Siberian.
Yeah. And it helps you because it's an adaptogen, and adaptogens help your body to cope with stress. So by supporting the adrenals, it will help you to regulate your hormones, your stress hormones, which in turn will help you get a good night's sleep. I wouldn't take it at night, but taking adaptogens in the daytime will really help regulate the sleep cycle.
You find that taking adaptogens in general should only be in the daytime?
Well, I've been kept awake by them before. So for me personally, I'd probably take them more in the day or the afternoon. But it doesn't mean everybody will have that same reaction.
Right. So essentially, taking these herbs, you could take them collectively or you could take them separately. You're going to, especially if you add an adaptogen to it, you're going to make an improvement on sleeping. And would you say, is it reasonable to say that if you take an adaptogen every time you take a group of herbs, that there would be a plus or it wouldn't make a difference?
Oh, definitely a plus. And then we have in herbalism what we call synergistic herbs, which are herbs that work in enhancing the effect of the other herbs. Something as simple as ginger root, which a lot of people are familiar with because we eat with it, that's a synergist, and it helps, strengthen the other groups of herbs. Licorice root, not the candy, the herb, that's also a synergist. So a lot of times in my formulas, I'll try and add like a little bit of one of those so that it will enhance the properties of the others.
Right. That's cool. And that's something that's missing in a lot of the formulas. They don't put a synergy. Or, even if they're just doing a single herb remedy, maybe they should put something synergistic in it just to make it more effective.
Yeah, and absorption, of course, is key. I'm sure you've talked a lot about that, and that comes back to gut health, making sure that your gut integrity is strong enough so that you can be absorbing the proper nutrients. In my opinion, we can eat all the healthiest food in the world and take all of the healthiest supplements, but if your gut health is not strong, and a lot of that comes down to stress, too, which is hard to beat in a busy, crazy life like we have these days. But with adaptogens and things like that, you can get that under control, and then you can absorb all those nutrients much better.
And give us your list quickly of what you think are the best intestinal herbs.
Well, I really like to take bitter blends. I like calendula. I like chamomile. I love burdock, even though that is more of, it is a bitter. That is one of the best herbs that helps clear the skin from the inside out by working. Yeah, a blood cleanser, and it helps, on the digestive, the liver also. I really like to add fennel, which is really nice for digestive issues. I have a bitters blend that I have a lot of those in.
That's cool. All right, so there you have it, folks. We've given you a really strong choice of herbs that can be very effective for different situations. Sleep is very important, digestion is very important, intestinal health is very important. And, of course, just for a second, what's your take on echinacea and golden seal?
I really like them a lot. Golden seal is an endangered plant. Not a lot of people don't realize that. So you would want to buy the kind that's wild cultivated, which means that it's replanted in a setting similar to its natural habitat. It's over-harvested. The United Plant Savers website will have a list of the endangered plants. So unless a company is growing their own for that purpose, I try not to take too much golden seal. Although it is great for sinus problems, echinacea, love it. It does interact with some medications. And I had also wanted to mention about St. John's wort interacts with a lot of pharmaceuticals. So if you are on any pharmaceuticals, you should definitely check for interactions. But yeah, echinacea is great. I think about taking the root in a tincture form, like when you're sick, when you have an acute flare-up of a problem. And then for preventative health care, I like to do a tea of like the aerial portions, the flowers and leaves.
Is it true that you shouldn't use echinacea for long periods of time, that it can actually overstimulate the immune?
Yes, I have learned that same thing.
All right, so then it should be used for a handful of days, 4, 5, 6 days, basically.
Yeah, probably. You can use it a little bit longer, but not for, an extended daily period of time.
Right. And the last thing that I want you to reiterate is the name of that site where you can see which herbs are endangered.
Oh, United Plant Savers. I'm not sure of their actual website, but that is what you would type in.
Yeah, if you type in United Plant Savers, I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah. And my website is communityherbals.com.
Say it one more time.
communityherbals.com.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. You've been delightful, and we'll have to bring you back again. We've been talking with Heidi Berkovitz, who's a clinical herbalist and educator. She's started a whole herbal community, hence the name Community Herbals, that are fixated on supporting the local farmers that are doing the right things, that are looking to conserve and protect species that are all needed and usable. But it also, besides all that, it helps all the other animals in everything is an ecosystem. So if you make sure that plants that have been indigenous to an area are doing well, you can make sure that the biodiversity of all the life is doing well. So I want to thank you for coming on. And we need to go for today, but tomorrow we'll be on at 11 o'clock. Remember, we have an organic wine tasting on April 20th. Until tomorrow, be well. See you. Bye.
Thank you.
That's it for the Friday edition of Pearls of Health, South Florida's innovative leader in health talk radio. Be sure to be here tomorrow at 11 a.m. for the weekend edition, live with Richard Pearl, his guests, and your calls. Healthy body, healthy minds, and healthy communities. It's what this show's all about. Pearls of Health with Richard Pearl, brought to you by Simply Natural and Simply Natural Organic Cafe. Simply the leader in healthy foods and natural products for healthy living on Sunset Strip in Sunrise and online at www.esimplynatural.com.